No, I'm not. I'm a true-bred Scot, and I'll just thank you.
Scotland, of course. Pre-century history isn't my field, you see.
Well, maybe not, but just you watch your lip or I'll put you across my knee and lap you.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
Giggity, 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 giggity.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and servo robots, to the 90th production of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 28th of January 2015, and featuring The Wheel in Space, written by David Whitaker. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt Winchell.
Hello.
Randy Ronson McCulloch.
Always a pleasure.
Aaron Romeo Moon Burke.
Hello.
And Tim the Enchanter Sheridan.
Hey!
Before we cut into our regular news this week, Tim has had I presume, an interesting weekend. Want to tell us a bit about where you were and what you did?
Oh, yes, I went down to Washington, D.C. to go to the Festival of MAG, or as it's commonly known, MAG Fest. Yes, the Music and Gaming Festival. I went there with my Muppet friend, Gary Indiana. And we both had a fine time going to panels, playing video games and arcades. We got some cool swag. I had photos taken with some cool people. We went to a voiceover panel where we met Wes Johnson and Matt Mercer, as well as the Atop the Fourth Wall Live panel.
Oh, nice.
Oh, it was a lamp review.
Yeah. You know, it was one of those like tall lamps that had like the multi bulbs in each separate thing that you had to turn on each separately.
That joke will never die.
Yeah. There was also a screening of the Angry Video Game Nerd movie.
Sweet. How
Nice.
was it?
It was a lot of fun. It was a good experience seeing it with a group of people instead of just watching it by myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was one of those movies that has to be seen in a group. A funny thing is, while I was there, I purchased 3 prints from Geek Boy Press featuring my 3 favorite doctors. Doctors Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee, and Colin Baker. And someone saw the Patrick Troughton print and said, "Oh, is that Rocky?"
Ouch.
Yeah. To be fair, it wasn't a photograph, it was a caricature. And now that I think about it, if you squint your eyes, Patrick Troughton does look an awful lot like Sylvester Stallone.
I'm just thinking of Patrick Troughton punching out his Cyberman. I could find that
People usually
slightly amusing.
mistake him for an early era Beatle.
That too.
It's or Mo Howard.
The son of Mo Howard.
I also went to a JonTron Q&A.
Oh, cool.
And I actually made JonTron laugh, which I am extremely proud of.
Sweet.
And I didn't even have to do much. All I said was, hello. Well, actually, my Muppet friend who was with me, he was on my arm. He's always hanging on my arm. And my Muppet friend, Gary Indiana, said, hello. And JonTron just lost it.
Well,
So
maybe
I
we'll
would,
be able to see a video. That'll be nice.
yeah.
Usually a lot of Q&As they tend to record at MagFest.
Hmm. I'll have to look that up.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a great time, and I definitely think I'll be going again next year.
I've always wanted to get to MagFest, but I have no money.
Yeah, I've wanted
I
to
would
go
need
to
a job
MagFest for the
first.
past 4 years, and it just hasn't come up as a possibility at this time of year.
The
Well,
only
I go
thing I've
to a
been
lot
warned
of
about
different
with
ones.
yeah, only thing I've been warned about so far about MagFest is if you don't have a particular panel or two to go to, you might find it a little meh. But
Mm.
I can honestly see myself being constantly busy the entire time myself. So
Yeah, I figure most people that I know would go there and end up just like I wouldn't even care about like I would almost go to MagFest just like at least not maybe not now because I'm not currently running any shows, but there have been times when I would have been willing just to go to MagFest, go to hotel room, not even pay for attendance to the convention, and just film crossovers all week.
that would be nice. Or just getting cameos all weekend too.
Mm.
I hear Diamanda Huggins usually up for it if she's not busy.
The fun thing about the Atop the Fourth Wall live was that there were about 7 people cosplaying as Fat Grandma.
Okay, yeah, Fat Grandma was officially one of my favorite characters that Linkara has dreamt up, mostly on a whim.
I think I've seen it like once or twice when he first came up with it.
Well,
It's
he's
really
used it at
caught
least
on though, huh?
yeah, oh, he caught on. He's used it like 6 times or more, and not only in his own videos either.
I've kind of stopped watching Linkara and a lot of the others.
Linkara I
Except for
still
maybe
watch
SF
every week.
Debris and, yeah. Except for maybe Todd in the Shadows and, what do you call it, SF Debris occasionally.
Yeah, Todd, I try to catch up when he has something interesting. Anyway,
As of February last year, I pretty much fell behind on all of my review shows. Right now, I'm up to date on watching Stuff You Like and whatever Sophie's calling her show nowadays, because it seems to change every couple months.
yeah, she's a little unsure what to call her show or what to do with her show, to be honest, once in a while, it seems. Anywho. News then?
Yeah, I think that brings us to our regular news, which is a little less actual. Well, before we do it, does anybody have any other pre-news life events they wanted to talk about today?
I've got a lot of stress, but hopefully, maybe it'll be able to work itself through, but that's for another time.
I misread things on my taxes, and I thought I was making a good amount back, and instead I'm getting pretty much nothing.
Oh, lame.
So I'm not happy.
Yeah.
No, our most exciting thing this week was an epic quest to find printer cartridges. So that was about it.
Okay, well, in the news, we have our latest entry, unfortunately, 2 lost stories. Those in the Doctor Who story that are no longer with us. In this case, it is actor Barry Ingham at the age of the age of 1982. There we go. At the age of 82, who played Paris from the Homer stories and the Mythmakers.
If he was 1982, that would be real news.
Yes, that is true. He apparently also featured in Doctor Who and the Daleks in 1965, where he played a Thal.
Oh, in the movie version?
Yes.
Oh, where he play a Thal. Okay. One of the Thals.
Yeah.
All right.
Apparently, he also appeared in Star Trek The Next Generation in the episode Up the Long Ladder.
Infamous episode.
Yeah.
He did get a good run in at the age of 82, and I'm thinking it looks like they did not give a reason, so we don't know whether or not he's part of our cancer list.
So sad that we have a cancer list.
Yeah, at 82 though, you got to stop worrying about that kind of thing. You're just like, if I die, I've had a good run at it, you know? I mean, sure, you're not George Burns living until you're over 100. You're not Keith Richards, who will outlive us all. But you've had a good attempt, so what can you say?
Yeah.
Right.
Always look on the bright side of life. And I'm not going to go any further into the song because that would really waste our news time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't make Tim start singing again.
Oh.
Ooh.
Oh. Och, Aaron.
Oh. Oh, I believe this knife in my back is yours.
Oh. I wasn't actually going to mention anything on that during the broadcast.
Next article.
Anyway. I think
All
that's
right.
all we can really say about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, next up, former Dr. David Tennant has won an award for special recognition at the United Kingdom's National Television Awards, a ceremony that took place last night in London. Very emotional. He thanked a lot of people, especially his dad. Yeah, he's received a few awards, hasn't he?
Yeah,
Or,
that's the special recognition is usually like their lifetime achievement award in a way.
This is his fifth one. His fifth
Really?
NTA award.
Yeah. Well, like I said, this is like the lifetime achievement award, which they give somebody who's, contributed a great deal to film, or in this case, television.
But must he
And
have
the fact that
five?
Dennett's getting it so young goes to show, because he's had 3 highly successful series.
In Britain.
He had Casanova, he had his run on Doctor Who, and he's had Broadchurch.
Yeah.
And that's not including the TV dramas and stuff that he's been in as well.
Right.
I mean, like the one-shot movies, except our short miniseries.
Right.
So yeah, this is like one step down from being declared a national treasure. He might actually be our first Doctor to get knighted.
Wait.
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say I
The
thought
War
this one-
Doctor.
Yeah.
Technically, though, he no, he got knighted after his Doctor appearance. Okay, I take that back.
Mhm.
I just think
I
actually,
was gonna say it hasn't been that long since he was knighted.
yeah, I thought he'd got knighted before he acted, though. So I was like, I was going to say that, and then I took it back. But yeah, I'm wondering when interviewers are going to have to start calling him Sir David Tennant. Ugh. Of course, I'm also waiting for Sir John Barrowman. Barrowman!
I wouldn't mind that. Alright. So anyway, you can see the full list of winners at the NTA website. I almost said TNA website, so
That'd be interesting.
website. Yeah, that would be awesome.
The Doctor wins a TNA award.
Yes. TNA
Okay.
Impact.
That's a completely different reward, or completely different award show, Aaron.
It involves wrestling. No holds
see,
barred.
Yeah.
we were taking different interpretations of TNA, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes. I was talking about Total Impact Wrestling.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, that's the sequel or whatever you want to call it to WCW wrestling. A lot of the old WCW wrestlers were in there. I don't know if they still are, like Sting.
Yeah,
Hulk
a lot
Hogan.
of them have
Yeah,
kind of
now
left.
it's basically
Eric
now
Bischoff.
that the WWE pretty much monopolizes wrestling. That's the new Rebel Alliance in a way.
Kinda.
Or was, I don't know.
I
don't
have
know.
no
All of
idea.
them are
Where,
kinda
I think
sloppily
it's
run
gotten
these
relegated
days.
back to minor leagues.
Anywho.
Anyway, so moving on. There is a campaign currently in progress to raise funds to publish a new book about K9, the Doctor's robotic companion during the Fourth Era, and of course Sarah Jane's companion in the Sarah Jane Adventures in the Five Doctors. This initiative is being driven by the co-creator Paul Tams, and will explore the K9's many lives through Doctor Who, K9 and Company, Sarah Jane Adventures, and his own series, the unofficial Australian series K9. Paul Tam says, It's amazing there's never been a book dedicated to the full story of K9, his adventures in time and space and beyond, and the making of the TV shows in which he appeared. We aim to correct this oversight and present an amazing volume of features, photos, and behind-the-scenes information. We also aim to have several new stories and comic strips from classic writers, including his original co-creator, Bob Baker himself. This book will become a lasting tribute to the people who created, acted alongside, designed, and built K9 throughout the years, and an insight into the world of TV production. Plus a look behind the scenes at plans for K9's further adventures on screen. So,
one of the
by
stretch
the
goals for this campaign
sounds
had
of
better
it,
be an audiobook narrated by John Leeson.
by the sounds of it, part of this is a money-raising plan to actually get production going on a second series of the K9 TV series.
Maybe.
Which, as far as I understand, had been green-lighted, but has since hit development hell.
Which is a possibility.
I think it's so weird that there's an unofficial series for K9.
Well, the problem was that the BBC, when the K9 series went into development, the BBC already had its hands full, Doctor Who-wise, because it was at that time that Sarah Jane Adventures, Doctor Who, and Torchwood were all going simultaneously.
And BBC didn't have money for a K9 series.
Bob Baker, however, wanted to cash in on the character's reappearance in Doctor Who and Sarah Jane Adventures and do a spin-off series. And he holds the actual intellectual rights to K9. So, they basically, he went to first the BBC, who turned him down, and part of his thing is he couldn't go to another British series, so he went to a Australian company who then sideways spun him off to Canada, because it was an Australia-Canada co-production, to make a series that technically can't reference the Doctor Who universe, yet can't directly reference the Doctor Who universe, but still, if you decide to, it's basically like extended universe for Doctor Who.
So it's for K9 what Probe was for Liz Shaw.
Yeah. Pretty
Only
much.
closer to canon than Probe was, because Probe had to change names to protect the innocent. And Probe, I mean, Probe was essentially
They had rights to a few people. They had Liz, and I think they had a few other rights, but I don't think they could get the Brigadier.
Yeah, but Probe was essentially supposed to be Unit with a different name. Here, everything's changed except the character K9. There's nobody from the Doctor Who universe in there but K9. But technically speaking, that just, considering it takes place in the future with different people, it doesn't mean that it can't not happen in the Doctor Who universe.
Yeah.
I'm kind of
It's like
surprised
certain
that...
writings in like the Star Wars extended universe or expanded universe, or a Star Trek pocketbooks novel, you know?
I'm kind of surprised that Big Finish has not done a K9 series, have they?
Not that I'm aware of.
They've had K9 in series. For instance, Gallifrey. K9 has been in there with the first version with Romana. And I think K9 Mark II was in one thing or another. I
think they're doing stuff with K9, Romana, and Tom Baker currently, but not as a separate spin-off or anything.
It seems like they seem to do a spin-off of just about anything else.
Mostly they do spin-offs of their own IP that got popular within Doctor Who, but that they own the rights to, and the BBC doesn't. Like Charlotte Pollard is a Big Finish creation. Bernice, I don't think is a Big Finish creation, but is a hell of a lot involved, and they have a lot more rights to her than they do to Doctor Who.
Bernie started in the I think in the Version novels as a Seventh Doctor companion, became an Eighth Doctor companion, was supposed to be there, basically have briefly missed the Seventh to Eighth regeneration, and then got spun off into her own series of books, and now the radio dramas.
Right? Like if you look at how Big Finish talks about Bernice Summerfield, they basically treat her as the reason Big Finish came to be, which makes me think that they have full rights to her and that she was pretty much a large part of the founding of the company.
I don't know about
that's pretty false.
rights.
That's pretty false.
Is it really?
No, Big Finish came into production because of Sirens of Time. That was their first actual production.
Yeah, but that was also
I
that
was-
was also a one-time thing that was quite a while before the actual Doctor Who main range got kicked off.
Yes, but it was the selling of Sirens of Time that got them to do this.
Okay, I was just
Or got
thinking.
them-
I was just trying to point out the Gallifrey, the various Gallifrey series that are going on, and the Dalek series that were going on.
Yeah, K9 is present in Gallifrey as President Romana's there and Leela's both there. So actually, there are two K9s in the Gallifrey series, and I actually think there has been at least one scene where K9 has been talking to K9.
Fantastic.
All they need is the third K9 from Sarah Jane.
And then you've got
that's what they really need. They do, except
an
Liz
army
Sladen
of
can't come back.
K9s.
Army of K9s defending
Actually,
Gallifrey.
that would be something for a special. Liz Sladen's, Sarah Jane's K9 goes off after her death and keeps solving mysteries or something, and ends up on Gallifrey.
Well, the Doctor Who universe has not actually acknowledged Sarah Jane's death, you notice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they acknowledged
That
the
is-
Brigadiers. But the Sarah Jane adventures just stopped, and it's never come up in the mainline series. They've never closed that loose end.
I thought there was a thing where Matt Smith, in like a character, said that Sarah Jane outlived Elizabeth Sladen.
Matt Smith may have said that in an interview,
Mm-hmm.
but
that wouldn't
that
have
was
been
never
canon.
said in the show.
Yeah.
It's never been said anywhere in the show or anything what happened. They just stopped production. Anyway, I
Gotcha.
think we've kind of covered this. If you
Over.
want more
Yeah.
details on this, you can go to Indiegogo's website, and there are a number of perks that can be chosen by those who participate in the campaign to create this book. Details on the modern series of K9 can be found on its official website, which is www.k9official.com.
Next.
That's cool. All right, I believe I'm next.
Yes, it
with-
would seem to be Tim next.
My news story. In Netflix news, Netflix is going to be doing a show based on the Marvel character Jessica Jones, and starring as Jessica Jones is one of her nemesis will be David Tennant as Kilgrave the Purple Man.
Okay.
The Purple Man, most people would know as a Daredevil foe. He is a man with purple skin who has the power to influence other people. Basically, he can make people do whatever he tells them to do.
I think he was
And I
kicked out of the Blue Man Group in Ron's Revenge, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe there is some in-comic history between the Purple Man and Jessica Jones, but
Yes, there is major history. Basically, if you've ever read the Marvel Max series, Alias, it follows the story of Jessica Jones, who is a private investigator and a former retired superhero.
yeah, if I remember correctly, her hero career didn't amount to much.
Yes, and the
She was an Avenger.
reason... Basically, the reason she retired from superheroing in the first place was because her encounter with the Purple Man was so traumatic.
Okay.
That it put her off putting on a cape and tights.
Probably for a
Thanks.
nice long while, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen David Tennant play villain before, and not just Barty Crouch in Harry Potter. He did a couple of made-for-TV movies in which he was kind of creepy stalker evil.
Ooh.
He can pull it off, and God, this is a bad picture of Tennant. He looks really soulless in those pictures.
I figured
Well,
looking at
The Purple Man is
episodes
supposed to
like
be
School.
soulless.
He
I
looks like a round bird.
it looks like they got his wax statue out of a museum and put him in a suit. It
One
really
of his
does.
eyes is askew. It's like they took Photoshop and tried jamming or spreading his face out to make it look more plump.
Yeah, it has
Like
to be
his
one of the most
cheek?
awkward shots anyone has ever gotten of him.
I'm just wondering if he'll have like an accent, because in the comic books, Purple Man's origin was he was a Soviet spy.
You don't want David Tennant. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he could pull Soviet.
I don't
I
know.
know
He
trying to
can
get him to do an
barely pull
American
American.
accent was a
painful.
mixed bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible, but it was obviously a British person doing
Yeah,
it.
it was muddled in a lot of places. It was a Perry accent, really.
Although I wonder if he could ever pull off anything further than Colonel Clink. So
I don't know. It depends on how he does the Soviet. Remind you, being a Scotsman, and he managed to do a fairly good British accent.
true.
Oh yeah.
They're kind of, just regional kind of differences though there.
But yes, Soviet accent can be hard to do. So it'll be interesting to see if Tennant can pull that off if he goes that way. It's a different continuity.
Mm-hmm.
So they could drop that part of it. But if you're wondering whether he can do evil, creepy, yes, he can.
Just from looking at School Reunion and Family of Blood, I think there's enough of David Tennant's portrayal there to kind of get what he would be like as a soulless evil character. Just take what he does there and push it to the next degree.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wondered what would happen if Tennant had been if Tennant had been handed the Nightmare and Silver plot where he had to do the planner, Mr. Clever.
Ooh. That would have been interesting.
It would have been interesting, but I think at the end it would have been two David Tennants sternly staring at one another. I think
I don't know. I'm just wondering, being able to pull one that's so incredibly darker.
Right.
It's just interesting me whether he could have done that or not.
Yeah. Well, other than that, interesting character. Anyway, maybe he'll do something with it.
In our Big Finish news this week, there's not a lot of Doctor Who releases, but there is a sale. The Doctor Who main range, I don't know what you call them, episodes, stories, whatever, numbers 51 through 100 are on sale right now. They say £5 for either CD or download. I've always wondered about this. I'm not sure whether it's an error or intentional, but if you actually go to them, it's $5 for the download, £5 for the CD, which comes out to $7.55 American. So again, I'm not sure if they meant $5 for the download, £5 for the CD. They always say £5 for both, so I don't know. But these are stories starting right after the 40th anniversary special. Unfortunately, the 40th anniversary is not included, but the 50 releases after it are. And you can get more information on that at bigfinish.com. I'm not going to try and spend time going through a list of all of them now.
Mm-hmm. Too many.
Now, I think Big Finish is still realizing that they have an American audience. Because back when I first paid attention to Big Finish, it was bigfinish.co.uk for one, and there was no mention of American currency, period.
Or maybe they are purposely selling it for only $5 American. I don't know. Some places actually do that.
No, I think they are, but it's just their advertising hasn't caught up to that concept yet.
Maybe. Next.
Okay. Well, that's actually the end of our news proper. And now we have one extended discussion topic. This comes from the ABC, which is not what we would call ABC. It's the Australian Broadcasting Company. And regards an interview that was made with Peter Davidson, who is down there to be the narrator in the Doctor Who Symphonic Spectacular. And his quote, when asked if the next pilot of the TARDIS should be a woman, is no. He says in his quotes, I speak now as a fan who grew up watching it. I have trouble with the idea of a female doctor only because I reckon if you're born on Gallifrey a man, you're probably a male Time Lord. Davidson said the key to the success of the modern Doctor Who series was the dynamic between a troubled doctor and a strong female companion. It seems to me that if you reverse that, you have an uncertain, fallible female doctor with a really strong male companion. You've got more of a stereotype than anything else. I don't really agree with this.
I don't fully agree with that either.
I see where he's coming from, but I also disagree.
Yeah.
And I do agree that if you took the 9th, 10th, and 11th Doctor's stories and tried to gender swap them, you could have some problems. But the whole thing is to continue telling new stories instead. For example, Series 8, I don't think gender swapping them would have made the slightest bit of difference between Clara and the 12th Doctor.
No.
Yeah.
Since both of them are a little, well, other than what would have been the male Clara and Danny, but then you could have made it Denise Pink, but yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Actually, Danny Pink would have maybe worked better as a woman.
I don't think they would have kept the name Pink if it was a woman.
Danny Blue?
Maybe. Denise.
Denise
Well, actually, oh yeah,
Blue.
Denise Blue.
Danny like
Well, you could
D-A-N-N-I.
nickname her Danny.
Yeah, Danielle.
Danielle
Danny
Blue.
with an
Oh,
I?
wow.
God,
Yeah.
we're getting into yeah.
We're getting
Fan
into
fiction.
Game of Thrones territory here.
But no, the thing is, I don't feel. First of all, he's of the opinion that you have to have a troubled, fallible doctor.
Well, I think he's basically saying that from 2005 through. I doubt he's watched Series 8 from 2005 through Time of the Doctor. That's basically what you have. You have the Doctor going through various psychological issues or various similar issues to that, which I agree that kind of plot would get questionable in a lot of people's hands if it was a female lead. But again, that's where writing new stories comes into play instead of writing the same story for another 10 years.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's definitely it should not happen right now, not while the person at the helm is Stephen Moffat,
Yes.
Yeah.
because he's only can write the same kind of stories.
He would essentially make the Doctor into River Song.
By the way,
Or
did we get to Davison's other suggestion?
No, I was saving that. I was
Got
saving
you.
that
Okay.
discussion
We're saving
for
that till
after this
for
discussion.
later in the discussion. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think maybe Moffat would be, if anything, if we had a female doctor, he would probably make her somewhat like Missy, only less crazy. Like, I can
But the
really
Doctor's
only
supposed
see
to be
him.
more crazy.
Yeah. Then maybe he would be, like a river
Well,
song, essentially.
it's Moffat has a hard time writing female characters. We've seen this.
We
Yeah.
know this, yes.
Yeah, so I don't think having the female as the lead is a good thing with somebody who can't write proper female characters.
Right.
That's the only reason I say no right now. Give us somebody who can write female characters, and I'm absolutely fine with it.
I'm pretty sure the last time the Moffat wrote a female Doctor, she immediately went off with the male Master.
Yes,
Yes.
but that was supposed to be a comedy.
It was
Yeah.
supposed to be a comedy, yes, so we will let that slide.
Yeah, and this crack about the sonic screwdriver now having 3 settings. That was not the best thing to take as a characterization,
Nope.
because after all, it was meant to be
Comedy.
deliberately cornball comedy.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's crazy madcap humor.
to be honest, I would love to see a female doctor written with kind of Troughton's look in mind. Look at me, I'm the ditzy female stereotype, but not really. I'm the genius calculating everything underneath it.
Joe Grant as the Doctor.
Kind of. But mind you, more of but even more of that underlying calculating, you know? I mean, if you take a look at not this episode, but the episode before that we reviewed last week.
Oh, Two of the Cybermen?
No, not even that one. The week before that.
Moonbase.
The Moonbase.
Moonbase.
Yes.
Yes, that one you really saw Troughton just going...
Just plotting.
Yes. I would love to see... a female doctor with the air of, of acting like a stereotype up front, but with that chess master underneath.
Yeah, as soon as the other people that don't really know her step out of the room, she
That'd be
turns
cool.
to her companions and she's already plotting.
Yes.
And sends them on their way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's what's going on and here's what we need to do. She just,
actually...
knows that if she acts like, a stereotype, people will dismiss her. It's like Troughton acting like a clown.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of reminds me. I remember thinking of kind of similarities between Ace and Christopher Eccleston's Doctor. There's kind of similar badass, I'm a wounded, rebel type deal.
Mm-hmm.
To those two characterizations, so.
Kind of, sorta, yeah. Is that it?
Here's a question,
no.
and this is something Aaron had broached when we were discussing it beforehand. What kind of companion we would want with such a doctor?
Oh, there could be interesting ones. Like, I was just thinking of the nerdy guy, like Nigma from Gotham.
I don't
That would
know.
be interesting.
Nigma's a little bit creepy wrong.
Yeah,
either
but
that
he'd be
or
more harmless.
Oh, it's saying, like, would the female doctor automatically have a male companion?
Well,
You
that's
never
true.
know.
You could have a female doctor and a female companion.
yes, but then you go into Xena territory.
Well, you get the mother-daughter treatment, though.
I was more thinking Legend of Korra myself.
I don't know anything about.
I
Legend of
haven't
Korra,
seen
really.
any Legend of Korra since
No.
the first season. I royally need to catch up on that.
I hear
But-
it's good, but beyond
Well,
that, it's over my head.
In order to explain what I mean, do you mind if I spoil something that's not plot related?
Go
We should
ahead.
probably announce any spoilers to our viewers.
If it's not plot related,
We shall
Yeah.
start with spoilers in 5,
and if
4,
it's a season 2
3,
spoiler, then
2, 1.
I don't care about spoilers, but
Ba- Basically throughout seasons 3 and 4 of Legend and Korra, the creators were dropping very subtle, to the point where honestly didn't believe them at first. Essentially hints toward a relationship between Korra and her female friend, who had sort of been swept up as part of the team and become along for the ride. As in the finale, they essentially announced them as a couple.
yeah.
geez.
So they're
I've
sort
heard
of
about
like
that.
building up throughout the entire thing. That's kind of what I was referring to.
In fact, the
oh
creators
god, they
actually
pulled a
made,
Willow with the character.
Well, the creators actually, made an extra post, I think, on their website about how yes, this wasn't a relationship that we've been working up to. But I'm trying to say that two women on the TARDIS doesn't necessarily need.
No, that's
No, exactly.
No,
true
but
also.
that's tends to be how that kind of pair up gets written on television.
Because it's sex makes money.
Yeah.
I would make some sort of comment about Minx and Prism, but I won't. I still like watching RPG Minx.
Anyway.
Although I guess it
Just
also
not like a
depends, if this is going to be something, if this is, I mean, the idea of doing that obviously comes, from looking at like the David Tennant age Doctor. But if you could always do an older or a younger. I mean, we've had a few young Doctors, so I mean, obviously they probably wouldn't do something like that if they had a 50-year-old. Oh shoot. Are there any of the Golden Girls still around? Because that would be an interesting Doctor.
The only
Oh my
one
God,
that's
Betty
still
White.
around is Betty White.
Oh,
As the
Betty White is the
Doctor.
Doctor.
Oh my god, that would be awesome.
That
She
would
would be hilarious.
exceedingly wrong.
No, I would pay money to see
she's
this.
A foul-mouthed lady.
Yes.
Have you heard Peter Capaldi before he became the Doctor?
It would almost be the same role
Only
if
a
you
woman.
could imagine it. as somebody coming up to you and acting like you'd expect your granny to act, and then say something to make your jaw drop through the floor.
It would be fantastic. I love Betty White as an actress. She's still fantastic these days.
That
Anywho.
actually would be
Anyway.
a very interesting doctor.
So, Davidson's other suggestion is saying that the time is right for a new female Time Lord to have a spin-off series, and laughingly suggested that as Georgia Moffat might be good for the role, aka getting Jenny her own series, which, sounds a little
Would be a-
nepotistic to me.
But it's also something that the fans have been asking for how long now?
Yes, it is. But hasn't Georgia been a little busy, making babies with David Tennant?
Yeah,
yes,
pretty
but
much.
she could also use a break.
Well,
That's really up to her and David, isn't it?
I wasn't
Kind of.
really entirely impressed with Georgia Moffat's performance either. I didn't really, it was
Well, I didn't
kinda-
find her terrible
She was
either.
all right for someone who was playing a newborn.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we come out with this article, have we not?
I think
I
so.
think there's not much else to say about it.
How much more time do we have to kill? We good.
We can go into the summary now-ish.
Yeah.
Unless someone has something they want to talk about regarding that.
Not much. It's just, Peter Davidson's statements come off as being a bit old-fashioned.
A little bit,
True.
yes.
It's hard to hate. Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I said I'm trying to say that I can't hate him. I mean he's
I can't
No,
hate him
neither
either.
can
No,
I.
hate him, you know.
it's
It's not
very
like
hard to
he's, like-
talk about sensitive matters like this without ruffling a few feathers, no matter what. Anyway.
And he does his best to work his way around it and be more polite about it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't fault him. Nobody's perfect. I still like him as the Doctor.
Yes.
Mm.
And we also have his dead ringer as a fellow convention worker. So
Yeah. I don't think there's any of the Doctors you can actually outright hate.
no.
Not even Colin Baker, who is admittedly a bit of a troll, but
But he's a troll in the
I
fun
feel
way
like
of
it's
it.
I feel like if I met William Hartnell on the wrong day, I would walk away
yes, but you can't because he's dead.
sourly. No, yes, sure. If you're talking about the living ones, then that's a different story.
Well, it depends on how you approach
Even
them, though, too.
Hartnell tended, when he was in public and talking to the public, to put on a very good face about everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, he became very much the grandfather figure he became in later seasons.
yeah, so it was basically, unless you were of course cast in the acting with him, in which case he was occasionally a bit of a bastard. So no, I don't think there's any Doctors I can outright hate,
Yeah.
living or dead. Not even Peter Cushing, who I to this day would have loved to meet.
Oh,
And
God.
I still can't look at him without thinking of Grand Moff Tarkin.
Right?
True.
And I'm not even the big Star Wars fan in the group.
It was his big role before he died. What can we say?
But yeah, I just find that his particular view to be old-fashioned.
It's a little old-fashioned, yeah. Anyway, we're still beating on this, so are we ready to
So
move
moving on to the summary. Who wants to do the summary? Do we have a volunteer?
Crickets are chirping. As a matter of fact, I hear static in the background.
Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? Anybody?
I
Okay.
could take this if you really want me to.
I feel like you use that joke at least once a week at this point.
I do,
Almost.
Yeah, pretty
because I
much.
always hit the same point, who wants to do the summary, and that's my default for when I do the summary, for when I ask that kind of question and get no answer.
Mueller?
Okay, so the episode starts out with the Doctor and Jamie basically waving goodbye to Victoria on a screen as they're leaving her behind at the end of the previous, not episode, not...
Serial?
I'm pulling a Fitz, Aaron.
Pretty
Serial.
story.
previous
Mhm.
serial.
Well,
I just
it was the
said-
previous episode.
Fury from the Deep.
It was the last episode
Yeah,
of the
it's the end
previous
of Fury
story,
from
wasn't
the
it?
Deep. So after a bit of waving and Jamie agonizing about leaving her behind, they take off, and the TARDIS lands, and they're not sure where. First, it seems to be a lot of metal, and then, looking up the scanner, they start seeing various locations that look nice and enticing: beaches, nice velds, grassy plains, etc. But Jamie notices that first it's day, then it's night, then it's day again, and the Doctor realizes that the TARDIS is showing places that it'd rather be than right here. The Doctor rethinks that, starts to plan to take off, but our old friend, the Fluid Link, decides to crack open again and start venting mercury into the console room. The Doctor and Jamie are struggling to get out, and the Doctor pulls open one of the roundels and pulls out a golden rod, and basically he and Jamie quickly escape the TARDIS.
The introduction of the magic wand to Doctor Who.
Yeah,
Well before
kind of.
2005.
Well, technically, Fury from the Deep introduced the sonic screwdriver in the previous serial, but neither here nor there.
True.
They find themselves into what looks to be a spaceship of some kind, but oddly enough seems to be a bit deserted. Looking down on the floor, the Doctor spies a series of tracks looking like they were made by a machine. Of what kind, they don't know. So they proceed to go through. They find this, and they find quarters and a sealed door in front of them. Searching through the ship, they don't find a hell of a lot else. The Doctor and Jamie go to the corridor because Jamie is hungry, because he's Jamie. So they pull out some water, they pull out a small feast, and discuss what to do. Meanwhile, in the pilot ship, we see a small, squat robot who's not R2-D2. He meanders out, checks the previous corridor where they were, eventually wanders back and and discovers the TARDIS before going back forward into the cockpit. Having their repast and a bit of a lie down, the Doctor gets up and wanders outside while Jamie continues to rest, and notices the fact that there's now a third track on the runway, meaning the robot had gone past before. At this point, the robot makes a course correction. The Doctor bangs his head against the door, and Jamie gets rolled out of bed. The spaceship is approaching a station, which does not seem to recognize the fact that the ship is there. Or does not seem to recognize, or doesn't seem, not, it recognizes that the ship is there, it doesn't seem to know, it's not supposed to be there. So they're deciding what to do, while the ship launches a series of round, egg-like objects. They decide to fire this huge X-ray laser at the ship, and as they're prepping to do so, Jamie finds the Doctor, who is in a bit of an odd state, being terrorized by this metal robot. Jamie throws a blanket over the robot, seems to knock it out of commission, and the Doctor collapses back in the quarters. Jamie, thinking fast, amazingly for Jamie, grabs the metal rod that the Doctor took from the TARDIS, which seems to light up at one end, and sticks it in a porthole and starts flashing it at the station. This causes feedback over the headsets, causing issues for a few people, but the people that don't realize that there's a signal in it. So they send people over to the station, or to the ship, and bring back the Doctor and Jamie. The Doctor has a mild to severe concussion, and Jamie, aside from a few bumps and bruises, is more or less all right. Since the Doctor's indisposed, Jamie takes the brunt of the interview. When asked who he is, he answers freely, but how did they get on the ship and what happened to the crew, he makes up a story that he doesn't know because he was suffering from space fever. And when asked the name of his companion, looks at a medical supply box and comes up with the name John Smith, a name that would continue to plague the Doctor for the rest of his remaining lives.
Yes, it does.
Meanwhile, these eggs start to basically glow and hatch, revealing that they are, in fact, the Doctor's old enemies, the Cybermen. Invading the station has been our more recent cyber enemies, the Cybermats, which has gotten on board. Jamie, hearing that they are still about to blow up the ship, which contains the TARDIS, wanders off and sabotages the X-ray lasers, and while it's being repaired, the Cybermat eats all the fuel. Jamie has also met Zoe, a young librarian, who has a great deal of facts and figures, and has been checked to covertly spy on Jamie, as they know that he's been lying. Jamie is caught sabotaging and is put under lock and key along with the Doctor. In the weapons room, they are attempting to repair the laser, but one of the maintenance guys finds himself surrounded by the Cybermats. Thinking quickly, he takes a canister of liquid plastic, which Jamie had used earlier to sabotage the laser, and sprays it on one of these devices. They take it. Zoe takes an interest in it, takes it back to the Doctor and Jamie, who decide to X-ray it. Meanwhile, while this has been going on, the station director has basically been showing signs of PTSD and has started to reject the reality around him, acting first with anger and fury that things aren't going on normally, and then acting like nothing's wrong at all. The Cybermen also have taken control of 2 people sent across to investigate the ship for anything they might need, and the Cybermen, are smuggled on board inside a case of these fuel rods. Around the same time, in a nearby section of the galaxy, a local cluster star has gone supernova, which has sent a whole bunch of asteroids heading towards the station, more than their shields can handle. Without the laser, they're going to be toast.
The shields can't withstand asteroids of that magnitude.
Pretty much.
I had to, I'm sorry.
I think they actually said that in the episode.
I think they might have. Anyway, so they so the Cybermen are on the ship. The Cybermat has been identified by the Doctor and Jamie, who basically have their oh shit moment. But knowing it's the Cybermen, they know more or less what the Cybermen are going to plan. They know they're going to get on the ship, and when they do, they start planning for the eventual situation. The Cybermen actually want the laser fixed, so they mind control the laser repair crew to get them to work on it. And their secondary plan is to shut down the oxygen on the station, killing all the humans. But before they can do that, first of all, Jamie and the Doctor needs the gold rod that he took from the TARDIS, which, anybody remembers the exact name for that?
Is it the inanimate carbon rod?
No.
The temporal something.
Yes.
Temporal something, yeah. I can't remember the exact name of it.
Yeah, I had this page up on the wiki earlier and then unplugged it when we had the news going. Stupid me.
Silly Randy.
But anyway, he needs this rod because it's essential for his plan to defeat the Cybermen. So Jamie and Zoe suit up and go tumbling across space to deal with it. Meanwhile, the second in command of the station discovers the Cybermen's plan to remove the oxygen and dies in the process. The laser's back online, and Jamie and Zoe have a bit of a shaky trip back to the station, but Jamie soon finds the rod and return it. But one of the other people who the Cybermen have mind-controlled identifies pictures of the people currently on the ship, and the Cybermen recognize the Doctor from his previous adventures with them. The Cyber Planner, which looks to be a round spherical object with the voice of the old cyber controller,
Mm-hmm.
hatches a plan to get the Doctor isolated and deal with him. But the Doctor realizes that their plan to get him isolated is in fact a plan to get him isolated, and takes other measures to deal with it. He builds a small force field in the chamber, which manages to take care of one of the Cybermen and prevent the other one from harming him. And Jamie shows up with the rod before they can get any further. The Doctor inserts the rod into the gun, which manages to take out the cyber ship, which was on its way to attack Earth. All of this was revealed within the course of a few minutes. A small team manages to take reclaimed people, because apparently putting a metal rod or metal piece on the back of your neck prevents cyber control. Go fig. Manages to take out the remaining Cybermen on the shop, the invading Cybermen masses along for the force field to fling them into space. Resting in the victory and regaining control of the station, the Doctor and Jamie prepare to take off, but Zoe wants to know more about them and manages to stow away on the ship. The Doctor, finding her before they take off, basically gets to show her what they would, the kind of things they would be facing, and shows her some of the Daleks at the end of the episode. Oh, okay, I got that summary done fairly quickly.
As quickly as we could. Yes.
For
Well
some
done.
reason, the name of that device is in neither the Wheel in Space article nor the Silver Carrier article. Apparently, TARDIS does not want us to know what it's called.
The MacGuffin.
The
Unless it's in
MacGuffin.
my...
Because it has.
Yeah, I called it the MacGuffin device.
The
Because,
Golden
yeah,
MacGuffin.
it's never been seen before, and it is never seen again. Unlike the Fluid
Because-
Link, which earns its name by breaking every 15 serials or so.
Well, the MacGuffin is Scottish in origin. You know, it's a device used to capture lions in the Scottish Highlands.
All right. Well, the main problem for this episode for me is telesnaps. Let me tell you. As you guys may know, not talking to the panel, but to anybody listening, this is a lost episode of Doctor Who.
Yes.
Only episodes 3 and 6 exist currently in the BBC's records. So that means that since they've never done an animated reconstruction of 1, 2, 4, and 5, the rest of it has been partially regained by still photography taken by people at the time, and reuse of a few scenes. The episode that we watched had also been partially animated using, I think, Movie Maker or something.
I want to say it was probably somebody's fan project using some sort of usual 3D program.
The animation
it was
reminded
some
me
sort
a
of
lot.
3D program, so I put some work into it.
Yeah, the animation reminded me of some of the early DVD releases that we had for Doctor Who, where you would get these little enhanced special effects scenes.
Hmm.
So yeah,
So maybe it was a test animation by the same group. I don't know.
No, these were fan submissions. So
Quite possibly too.
So it was definitely some fan work with a popular modeling software.
Of some
Basically,
kind, yeah.
they mostly did scenes where there wasn't a physical person, just like a robot or asteroids. Although asteroids could have been redone and done better.
Actually, I think the asteroids were borrowed from actual clips from the episode.
Yeah, they
actually.
were.
And
I thought it was
There
kind
was
of
once-
jarring. I'm sorry. Jarring when they would switch from like the still photographs to like brief CGI animation.
It doesn't bother me so much because I've been watching Star Trek: The Original Series in their basically what was their high definition remasters, where they redid all the old special effects with modern CGI.
Mm.
I
And
remember
to be honest,
not knowing that they had made that, it really threw me off when I watched Star Trek on Netflix, and I'm seeing these CGI Enterprises. I was like, what?
yeah. But once you know that's going to happen, um, some of those episodes of Star Trek redone look absolutely beautiful. The Doomsday Machine with new special effects is a wonderful episode to watch because that episode was like 50 to 60% special effects shots.
Yeah. I would
And
also argue for a whole bunch of episodes that are mostly going to be still images or a few cuts from either previous episodes in the story or little tidbits from, like, say, Blue Peter. Having at least some sort of animated thing for the really quiet moments is a breath of fresh air, to be honest.
yeah, but at the
Yeah.
same time, there's still a lot of stuff that's telesnaps, and the dialogue of what's going on scrolling below the telesnaps.
Once in a
And
while,
to,
yes.
and to be honest, when that happens, my attention starts to wane. I mean, I was already half falling asleep from eating a big dinner when I was watching this.
I started
So
drifting off about midway through the 5th episode.
I think I started on the fourth.
I paid full attention when it was definitely the live action episodes, but I did tend to waver to looking at other things while listening to the telesnap stuff. Although I did
Yeah,
try to pay
and
attention
that's the
when it
main
sounded
problem with
interesting.
telesnaps. With Big Finish audio, you can do that because it's meant to be just listened to.
Mm-hmm. And they
But
pre-plan
it's
it that way.
Yes, but with this, there's whole scenes where you're just not sure what's going on.
So when it got quiet, I kind of knew that they were trying to pull something, usually with this one at least, so I would come back and go, oh, look, animated again.
Yeah, usually when there's not a lot of dialogue is when there's the scrolling text across the screen, so you can at least know then. Which is actually the same way with a lot of even more modern things that are that don't have that problem where you can realize, okay, when the dialogue is quiet, there's probably something visual on the screen that you can't miss, and that's when you turn your head to make sure you're paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so telesnaps will always get a little bit of a point deduction for me because I do start losing some attention level like that. So I'm going to let you all take that as a grain of salt as we go into what we usually do with these episodes. What you liked, what you didn't like, scenes we liked, scenes we didn't like. Let's start with who's on my list. Who's on the list?
First?
Who's on first? What's on second?
And we start with Matt.
Starting with me again.
I think this is essentially the same call as we had last week, so everybody's still in the same picture location.
Yeah, I think we should try starting a new call.
Randomize people. And mind you, I don't know, you may always be first because you're technically in charge of the calls.
Technically. I want to say
I could start bringing a D4 to the podcast and rolling it.
Could. I will say one of the things I like. Was someone saying something
I always
again?
go last because I'm looking at 4 pictures.
I will
Roll
say.
initiative.
Shut up, please. I'm trying to talk, and you keep interrupting me just as I'm about to talk every time.
You didn't talk for a while, so I said something.
I could hear
For the
somebody on
5th
keyboard.
time, if you don't mind, please. One of the things I think that got nicely upgraded was the Cybermen overall. I can tell these are new bodysuits. They look a little more like the next model that we're going to get in the next story.
The teardrops are there.
The teardrops have been added onto the eyes. They also have the little teardroppy bump on the bottom lip. The suits, again, the main bodysuits themselves have been upgraded. I think they have
The wiffle balls are gone.
better gloves. What was that?
The wiffle balls are gone.
The wiffle balls are gone, yes. So there's less
paid a
weird
close
things
attention
attached
to
to
that.
them. I believe these are still the same helmets as last time, but again, they added a little extra decals on them, so that kind of works, and it's getting a little closer to the iconic look. They seem to move around a little more naturally this time. I think so as well. Again, these seem to be better body-fitted suits.
Although it was kind of hard
Um,
to tell in some areas because telesnaps.
because tell snaps, but the two episodes we got of them, they definitely seemed to be very comfortable with what they were doing. Matter of fact, they even got to lift a guy live on screen.
Unfortunately, since there's been no DVD release of the Wheel in Space, we don't get to hear interview with people on what it was like in these particular suits.
Yeah, that's the one thing I was
can
kind of looking for,
guess.
and I couldn't find anything.
I can
Um,
guess that there were still some issues
oh, probably.
because of the need for another revolution in the invasion.
Well, the helmets in particular, I would think, are the biggest problem of the suits still, because they still have these are more or less the same helmets as far back as Moonbase. So they
More or
probably have
less.
problems. They still probably have problems for heads inside of those helmets, and also looking at those helmets, you realize that they have a solid structure down to the neck onto their shoulders, so you couldn't really turn their head around very well either.
Yeah, you can actually see the. I noticed this because I was also looking at the cyber suits.
Mm-hmm.
You can see where the helmet is placing on the suit. You know, over the jumpsuit, if you will.
Yeah.
And I know that later production Cybermen go very strong into finding a way to hide that.
Yeah.
Especially the 80s Cybermen really
Oh,
had
definitely.
the suit actually come up over the helmet piece.
Trying to think. Oh, they also changed up the voice. I think in most sequences, not all sequences, but most sequences, the new Cyberman voice is a little bit better to hear.
It was, but at the same time, it wasn't very mechanical sounding.
No, it wasn't over the mechanical sound.
The voice that they did, and I'm going to go ahead and say this, Matt, because this is something that kind of annoyed me, is there was one scene where they changed the voices, and it kind of became a hybrid of what they were sounding like and what the Cyber Planner sounded like. And I thought those are pretty good. And then they redid that same scene for the next week, and they went back to the other voices. And I'm like, oh. My one problem with the voices were they were a little too close to Daleks.
So. But anyway, that was my
Of course,
overall...
that also could be that one of the cyber voices was Roy Skelton, who's well known as being a Dalek voyeur.
Could have been, yes. But yeah, that's my general, really noticeable improvement, I think. Thing I liked about this episode.
Okay, Tim.
All right. One thing I liked about the episode was the interplay between Jamie, the Doctor, and Zoe. So it was a good setup for the new team, so to speak. It was a good introduction to that, as well as I liked how it gave Jamie more things to do than just lying unconscious on a bed.
No, it was the Doctor's turn to do that.
Yeah.
For an episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it also was more realistic, like how someone from the 18th century would sort of have to think on his feet without the Doctor to explain everything to him, and that idea of him coming up with the name John Smith just by reading it, and also him figuring out how to signal the wheel with the golden rod.
I don't know. That one hit me as being... I was kind of wondering how the hell Jamie came up with that, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure on that either.
Well, I think his idea was that he was gonna it was glowing, and we can sort of signal it with a light in the window.
Maybe. And
And again,
it happened to
he's
work, but
used
not
to
in the
things
way he
like
thought it
fires
would.
and smoke signals, I think. So
Mm-hmm.
that's basically along the same train of thought.
Yeah, so he happened to just get really lucky that instead of seeing a light, they heard a weird signal. So I think it's
Although
just pure
I do
luck
think
and
that someone who
coincidence.
was a secret agent for an episode could do a little better than John Smith, but
Well, it could have been worse. Imagine if it was real-world items, if Jamie had been looking at a bottle of maximum strength Excedrin. The Doctor could have been plagued for the rest of his existence with the name Max Cedrin.
My.
But I know, because I'm Max.
Better than Max Headroom. Boom.
Okay, so was that everything, Tim?
That was everything. Yep.
All right, Bill.
I'm going to go with Zoe's character arc here. Zoe starts off as very much someone you would think would either be Cyberman-like or almost on the Cyberman side to the point of heavily favoring facts and logic over everything else. And then throughout the course of the episode, she starts to, realize the flaws in that and the growth that she still needs, and to become interested in learning more rather than just becoming smug with the knowledge she already has, and goes on to become someone who would would be interesting as a companion. So I just enjoyed seeing Zoe's character arc from the her librarian role in the beginning to someone who wants to go with the Doctor and learn his way of life, essentially.
From an observer to a participant.
True.
I mentioned before the podcast I was going to say something so I could get your actual reaction to it. I'm going to say it here. Do you know who Zoe's personality reminds me of? Hermione Granger.
Yeah.
It's fair.
From the first book, yeah.
Very fair.
From the first book towards the end, yeah.
Yeah.
She gets to be a little
Except
less
she's
bookwormy.
never quite as haughty as Hermione is in her first year.
I don't think she has as big an ego.
Which is interesting because a character like Zoe, you'd think would, and you can tell they were grooming her for a companion by the fact that she didn't, because normally, I mean, especially if she was written nowadays, a character with those traits would definitely have been very egotistical.
There is a little bit of that. If there is a little bit of that, if you look closely at the dialogue, there's several situations where the Doctor comes up with something, and she's like, "Why didn't I think of that?"
But yeah,
at least I thought of it before you did, pointing to Jamie.
Right, but that's just, I mean, in her situation, I might not say it, but I would be thinking it. So I can definitely, see where she's coming from there. Of course, there's also Jamie's, Jamie definitely does not like her being smarter than him anyway, because he likes to make his own little snide comments too, so she's just, giving as well as she's getting.
It's actually, not to give away spoilers for later seasons, but we're only going to be covering one more episode in their arc, and we have seen them before when we did the War Games a while back.
Yes.
But the way that Jamie and Zoe kind of develop into is they're one of the first real snarky relationships I can remember on television.
Kind of.
They just kind of snipe and snark at each other throughout.
Yeah, Ben and Polly had a little of that, but not as much.
No. But you kind of get this feeling even through the snidiness that they're just kind of like poking fun more so than actual head bashing.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's foul intention snark. Most of I snark all the time. None of it has any real bite to it.
Well, that's just like how they met each other was a snarky situation where she's trying to guess where he's from, and he's well, I'll take you over my knee if you call me Norwegian again, or whatever she thought he was.
A Dane.
And
she called him a Dane.
Yeah, a Dane. There we go. And her response is to laugh at that.
Yeah, well, mind you, also I come from a family who that's how we function. My mother and I have basically snarked at each other our entire lives. But, it's for us, it's a good thing. It's how we show we care. And those two, it's one of those relationship things that would actually become a trope.
Yeah.
It would be Sam and Diane and Cheers. Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd in Moonlighting.
Mm-hmm.
It really is actual. It's a romantic comedy trope of the two people that just like sniping at each other, falling for each other. So, and you get an inkling of that.
And oh,
But of course, it never comes
don't
to
mention how
anything
many
'cause they get
different
their-
countless animes have that as well as the main characters too.
Yeah, that too. And of course, it never goes anywhere because this was a children's show, and they all get their minds erased in the end of the war games.
If you say so.
So
There's fan debate on even that.
yeah, well, eventually it happens. Whether it happens
Well, I
at
think
the
it's
end of
pretty
the war games
confirmed
or
that
after
Zoe at least
another.
has her memory erased.
Yeah. Either way, nothing ever comes of that particular relationship. And like I said, it is kind of obvious too that Jamie was sweet on Victoria, but he
Yeah.
got to play the big strong man to Victorian sensibilities.
Mm-hmm.
So that it is kind of a strong relationship. So yeah, I can see that, Bill. Okay, Aaron, what did you like about the episode?
I actually liked the concept that was brought up that I thought was interesting. I'm not sure if they actually followed through with it in subsequent serials. It was the Earth for Earth movement.
They do.
They do
They
follow up
do.
on that a little
Yeah.
bit, yes.
The Earth for Earth movement comes back in both the third and fourth Doctor eras. Though by the fourth Doctor era, it had a name change of like the Brotherhood of Humanity or the Brotherhood of Mother Earth or something like that.
Something along those lines, yeah.
Of the belief that mankind's destiny is not in space but back home in Earth.
Yeah.
Then the
Oh, no,
solar
it's the
flares
Sons
start
of
up,
Earth.
and I'm going to
It's
guess
Sons
that
of
they all got cooked.
It's the Sons of Earth. You hear it again during the third Doctor era. I actually looked this up before the episode because I actually hoped it would come up. Thank you, Aaron.
You're welcome.
It comes up in the third Doctor era as actual factual terrorist faction. They've done terrorist things in space and caused a great deal of trouble, and then the Sons of Earth seems to be slightly more undergroundish. They were supposedly running guns to the Swampies in Kroll to convince the people to have them overthrow the people running the methane factory to get them to go back home to Earth.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I just
it is
thought,
it's a theme that keeps coming back at least until the fourth Doctor era, but I think John Nathan Turner's era kind of changed the way they thought about how space was into the more gritty, semi-dystopian future anyway.
Mm-hmm. So they
So
kind of got
that
dropped
plot
out
line
to the
kind of got
wayside.
dropped, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, this kind of introduced it.
It was just kind of an interesting concept because, you have the Doctor going on all these fantastic space-based adventures and everything, and here's this group of people who are completely the opposite of that. It sounded like it would be, if they had explored it a little bit deeper or something around that era, I was kind of curious. It would have been more interesting.
Actually, it would be kind of interesting to bring it back as a semi-background villain for a season or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be
This
pretty
group
cool
of people
too.
that start to notice this chain of events dealing with this one person known as the Doctor throughout time.
Considering that we are in the 21st century now, so it is right around the time for them to crop up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, what I liked about this episode, give me a moment here because I have to make sure I don't say anything that you guys said. I liked the fact that they actually did touch on, it like they followed through off the last serial again.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned this with the last episode, I think it was, with Tomb.
Mm-hmm.
They followed through with the last serial where they introduced Victoria. Here they followed through with saying goodbye to her. Jamie was all bummed out, and every now and then you'd stop and go, I wonder what Victoria's doing now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor's trying not to say, "Oh, Victoria died hundreds of years ago."
Yeah.
Actually, the doctor didn't know because he didn't know when he was.
Well, I
True,
think
but
after he
that's
found
why
the moon base.
he's like, "What do you think Victoria's doing now?" Well, time is relative, Jamie.
But yeah, in real time, after you find the wheel in space that came from Earth, she's probably been long perished. In the grand scheme of things.
And yeah, that's actually a good point of why the doctor never looks back either.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yes, you're going to some place where they're either been dead or hadn't been born yet. But still, for somebody who had somebody that they were kind of sweet on, that kind of, that kind of moping is rather usual. And then, of course, he gets the rebound of Zoe in his face.
Mm-hmm. Which he doesn't initially take to, but they seem to grow on each other pretty quickly, even in this story.
Well, yeah, when Jamie got over being pissed off that Zoe wasn't Victoria.
Yeah. And, well, considering the fact that it was the 60s at the time, and Zoe and they had Zoe tend to be fond of wearing cat suits. Hey.
1960s
Sparkly
fan
cat
service.
suits.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, so what
thing.
didn't you like? And I believe we've covered telesnaps. So,
Sort of, yes.
starting with you, Matt.
Something I didn't like. Anything that really nagged me about this one. Other than the lack of background information because this isn't on a DVD yet. Trying to think. Anything that... I think one of the things that had me puzzled was how they had this mind control beam all of a sudden when that wasn't a thing at all, ever.
It sort of degraded. It went from, we need to take you to Mondash to convert you, to we'll stick a thing on your head to convert you, to we need to hypnotize you.
It seems kind of weak. And
Yeah,
out
it
of nowhere.
was a little bit out there.
That's one thing. I think it continues through the invasion, and then I think they lose that power because it makes no sense.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I don't think they have it in the invasion, do they?
They have it in the invasion. They use it once that I know of.
Yeah, and probably only because they really needed to use it just once.
That's
and
the power
then
of
forgot
plot.
Except in the invasion, you can see it starting to fail too. So.
Okay.
Or are you talking about the emotion machine?
I'm talking about the Major General.
We'll have to discuss that later after we watch it again.
We'll have to discuss it next week.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So, is there anything else, Matt?
I think that was my major thing that was added in on this story that didn't make any logical sense to me, really.
Okay. Tim?
Oh my god, the character of Jarvis was one of... I believe he is the most bamboo reeds under the fingernails annoying character I have ever met.
Which one was Jarvis again?
That's
The station director.
Oh, yeah.
The guy who's pretty much a parody of the leader in denial trope.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
he was.
I hate that trope. I hate it so much. I just won't. I wanted to flick his nose.
I couldn't tell if he was suffering from PTSD, if he was OCD to the point of autistic, or where they were going with it.
I was just more
Like,
seeing
it's
it.
so-
It seemed more like it was a fugue state, like he was compartmentalizing anything that was on the book's job description and shoving it into a side of his brain that he was ignoring
so that he could only see the things he wanted to see. So a sort of a dissociative disorder of some sort.
And
Okay, and you were
then
saying, Aaron?
yeah.
Didn't they kind of imply that he may be under control of Cybermen?
They didn't
At one
directly imply it.
Mm.
The Doctor may have hinted at it, but they never went anywhere with it.
Yeah.
And if he was, the question would have become how,
Right.
It's
since
just
he
like-
was that way before the Cybermen even got on the wheel.
It's just like he was the perfect storm of everything I dislike about fiction. He was the head in the sand, the obstructive bureaucrat, the arbitrary skepticism, the guy who refuses to listen to the people whose job it is to tell him what's what.
Thankfully, the story itself starts to bury him away after the first couple of
Yeah.
episodes.
Yeah, and then to top it all off, he doesn't really get a he could have redeemed himself with a heroic sacrifice,
Or
but
something.
his sacrifice wasn't that heroic.
What
kinda
did happen to
pointless.
him at the end? I remember him.
that was actually
He suddenly snaps out of his fugue state after Gemma was killed. When he sees her
Okay.
dead body on the screen, he kind of snaps out of his fugue state, walks out there, and we have no idea what he was trying to do.
I think he
but
was trying to get back to his quarters.
No, he was something with the Cybermen. He had to do something, but I don't remember what. But either way, the Cybermen caught him in the hallway and strangled him to death.
Strangled him and then lifted him while he was still moving over their heads and tossed him.
Yeah, and then
That
they
was
shot
actually
him
a
with
really
a
cool
beam
scene.
from their chest.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So
It was kind of like they deliberately made him to be unlikable and then pointlessly killed him in the most nastiest way they could.
That's what
Most
that's,
nasty,
that's
but
what-
also probably the most awesome because again, I can see that both actors are still there on screen as he's getting tossed. So that was a heck of a scene to pull.
Considering that it looks like a satire and was written by a writer that could not stand the base under siege premise, I'm pretty sure it was all on purpose.
Possibly. Probably the writer's idea of stop with these kind of characters, toss, strangle, laser beam, done.
Now, if only more slasher writers would do that with their
Yes!
with their versions of that character.
No kidding, right?
Now, I don't mind a character that has one of those flaws, but don't stack all of them on one character.
Yeah.
I mean, having a character that's the skeptic, that's fine. But don't make him the skeptic in control that's also sticking his head in the sand. No.
yeah.
Unless you kill him off really early. Anywho.
Anyway,
that was what John Saxon in Nightmare on Elm Street.
To a degree.
Anyway, Bill.
I actually did not have anything I disliked in my notes, but I think I'm going to go with episode 1 being essentially non-functional. And if this were back in the day where each episode has its own title and it was a serial adventure, I would be able to take it a little better. Or if there were 2 episodes on the, what the hell is it called? The Silver something. I keep forgetting its name. But if there were 2 episodes on the Rocket in a row or something, I would kind of get it a bit more. But ultimately, it's an episode spinning its wheels, fighting a robot that has nothing to do with the plot, and if it wasn't added for padding, it feels like it was, and that's probably more of a crime than if it actually was. And it just feels like that episode could have been put to much better use introducing characters or something.
Okay.
Well, it does, but it takes itself to the last minute before it does.
All right. Aaron, how about you?
Yeah, let me just make sure that I have. Okay. Well, from my notes, I'm going to. The one thing that I didn't like that I made note of, is kind of a piggyback off of Bill's thing, but it's kind of an overall kind of slowness to the story. for me. It seems like there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of kind of not much happening that really pushes the plot forward. Or if the plot goes forward and then it's kind of pushed back, it seems like they have to go out and get the doctor's rod from the rocket and everything like that, and they do wind up finding out that the Cybermen are searching for the doctor, but that's something that they could have maybe tapped into on the space station.
In other words, this feels like it was a 4-episode serial that was dragged into 6.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I've heard it described
I won't
that
argue
way
with that
too,
too
I
much.
believe.
I can see where you're coming from with that. Question: Have you watched a lot of First Doctor serials?
I have not. I've watched SF Debris kind of talking about some of the lost episodes and stuff, and about how they seem to take 4-episode stories and stretch them to 6 sometimes.
Sometimes, yes.
After watching something like The Keys of Marinus or The Reign of Terror, this feels positively fast-paced.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Keys of Marinus never bothered me.
Oh, I felt
Because
that
each
took
episode
forever.
was basically looking for a key, so...
Yeah, they could have sped it up, though. And
They
yeah,
could've.
while there are some stretching pains in this one, I think it's not as bad as other episodes have been that stretch it too long.
Of course,
That
there's
was
also
really
the fact that this is more of a sci-fi horror story, which is my wheelhouse anyway.
Yes.
So I'm less likely to be bothered by things like that than somebody who's who this isn't their particular genre.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I like the sci-fi horror series. I like Alien and stuff. So, but this just didn't seem to do it for me.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so my beef with this. You strip down the plot. This plot is essentially identical to the moon base.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Only worse in about every way.
Really?
Yes. Every place where the moon base shined, this kind of lays flat. I mean, the cyber design, I'll admit, is better. But I'm talking about the plot, the writing, and the characterization. Places where the Doctor outright shines in the moon base, he comes across here as kind of flat and tired. And that's probably because this was the end of a season filming for Troughton, and he was probably wearing a bit thin at this point.
Sure.
But you don't get as much of the mischievous man who's thinking about it all at the same time Doctor in this. Of course, he has a whole episode where he's unconscious.
And trying to catch up as best he can.
And basically playing catch up, but he comes across as more concerned, worried than actually, plotting in this.
Well, he does come up with a few good plots towards the end, though, like the whole force field thing.
There's a little bit less plotting because this is a situation where the Doctor doesn't need to be all that clever. As he's mentioned, this is someone he's faced time and time again. This is his 4th time in half as many seasons fighting the same enemy. So he's kind of got a rhythm going to it, which is also why, they single him out to kill.
Mm-hmm. But he also starts to pick up on their beats, too, even though they're trying to pull something new on him.
Right.
Yeah, and, there's not as much Doctor and Jamie playing off each other in this, leaving Fraser Hines to play off of the new Zoe as well, but it kind of leaves Patrick Troughton without anyone to play off of.
Yeah. I will admit that is a bit of a downfall.
Makes his acting a little flat. I find most of the characters, the secondary characters, to be caricatures rather than characters.
Certain parts, yeah.
Whereas I found the ones in the moon base to be proper characters.
When they got a chance to actually act, yes.
All in all, I find the moon base to be the better serial. And like I said, it's kind of painful because this is the second serial and it's essentially the exact same plot. Only a different location change.
And there's also, granted, this should stand on its own and shouldn't need to be required when you look at it, but there's also the heavy implication that this story is intended to satirize and point out all the flaws in something like the moon base and say, hey, wouldn't you rather watch something more interesting than this?
That's
But that, again, that needs to stand on its own rather than needing to be said anyway. So,
So, favorite scene, Matt.
Favorite scene. Oh, should I or shouldn't I? I have to say one of my favorite scenes is when Patrick does finally get to talk to the Cybermen, and then he tricks them into the force field.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has this little epic moment where he gets to talk to the villains.
I suppose you're here to kill me.
Yes. I suppose
I've heard
you're
that
here
one
to kill
cross-quoted a few places.
It is one of his popular lines, and as a matter of fact, it's also a clip used in Earthshock.
Yes.
A very small clip of that is used in Earthshock, and yeah, it's definitely one of his better moments with the Cybermen. You just see them standing there watching him closely like hawks, and he looks back at them and he's like, I suppose you're here to kill me. Well, then, come on. And he lures them right into a trap and just zaps one of them to death.
That is a good scene. Okay, Tim.
I liked the scene of the Cyberman floating in space, waving their arms like beautiful ballerinas.
That was an amusing scene there. You don't forget that, yeah.
The thing is, I don't know why, but as I watched that scene, you know the scene in the '89 Batman movie where the Joker starts shooting the mob boss?
Yeah.
Remember the music that played there?
Yeah.
That started going through my head. I don't know why.
Yeah.
That just seemed to fit the Cybermen just waving their arms in space, trying to be canaries, apparently.
Their attempt to float through space towards us.
Well, you see, they heard that Daleks were based on ballerinas, so they wanted to be just as graceful.
Okay, Bill, what was your favorite scene?
I'm going to go with the most meta ending to a serial of all time, in which the Doctor is essentially, so you want to travel on the TARDIS? Well, I will show you reruns.
Here's an episode from my previous season. Tell me what you think. Yeah, that was meta, and I think it's about as meta as Doctor Who's ever gotten. No, I take that back.
The TARDIS data core mentions that it might be a unique instance in all of television history in the reruns actually being incorporated into the season plot.
There is one more meta thing,
Oh?
and that is in Remembrance of the Daleks, way in the future, where they go back to 1963, and Ace turns on a television.
Oh, and watches Doctor Who, I think.
That starts to do the BBC One narration opening for the episode of Doctor Who that week. Where it's 5 o'clock here at the BBC, and once more it's time to go for an adventure in time and space with our BBC series Doc Cut.
Yeah.
That, I don't know, that one might win the meta points, but this is a close second, if not the outright winner. Okay, Aaron, what's your favorite scene?
My favorite scene is going to pretty much echo the scene that we saw from last week, which was the Cybermen emerging from their little balls. It starts out as this bright. It starts out as you see these spheres kind of wobbling back and forth in the storage area, and all of a sudden you see them grow with this white hot light. And the white hot light vanishes into these white silhouettes that you start seeing are humanoid form, and eventually you recognize them as the forms of the Cybermen. And they finally punch through the top of their spheres, which, at first they look like balloons, just kind of wobbling there and everything. But then you realize that they've become apart. So
Who's typing?
Metallic stone-like substance. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yes. That was great. I couldn't tell if it was animated or live the first time I saw it.
I could tell it was live.
Yeah.
No, just the restoration on that episode looked to be fairly good because it was not grainy at all.
Yeah, they have moments.
Yes. Okay, my favorite scene. Huh. I think it would have to be when Jamie met Zoe. The whole kilt conversation, everything, and those two just seem to immediately learn to play off each other. That just hit
You're
me
wearing
as
female's garments. I think is how she
yes.
said it.
The second she starts laughing at him, and he finds, oh, you can play too, huh? So yeah, that just hit me as good. So scene you didn't like, Matt. Try to make it brief because we're starting to run out of time.
We're getting close. Scene I didn't like. I have to say there are a couple of scenes here and there where these guys were talking very robotically, and no one seemed to figure out that they were under mind control when it was very obvious that they were.
The doctor knew he was under mind control,
No,
and everyone
only
else
one
was
time
like,
the
"What the
doctor
hell are you
pulled-
talking about, doctor?"
The doctor only pointed that out once. Nobody
The thing
else,
is,
after numerous
talking-
times, figured it out.
The thing is, talking to various people, if you listen to their radio conversations and stuff, a lot of people are talking very mechanically for no reason in this episode.
No, these ones were particularly robotic. I remember noticing it a hell of a lot in everyone who was mind controlled.
Okay.
It
All
just
right.
stuck out to me.
All right, Tim.
I'd have to say, pretty much, of all the scenes I disliked was just the one where they catch Jamie sabotaging the laser beam, and Jarvis, bastard, just goes on and is like, yes, I'm going to demonstrate what a colossal douchebag I am, very loudly and very aggressively, and that scene just annoyed
If
the
that was
heck out
one
of
of his
me.
lines, I think he would be a much more likable character.
Okay.
Mm.
Bill.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I do not like blink and you miss it resolutions to the climax. It's the Cybermen are invading, and then I think they spray them with what looks like fire extinguishers, and then they're gone. And it's just like, wait, that was it? And yeah,
Well, they very briefly
Yeah,
explained it.
Yeah, that
what
was
that stuff was.
magic MacGuffin fluid makes Cyberman go away.
Yeah.
You know, if it had a sign that said break glass in case of Cyberman, maybe, but that would have been after one of the Cyber Wars.
Mhm.
Okay.
Didn't they also release the one of the, in order to suck them back out into space? Didn't they release one of the what do you call it? Oh God, I can't remember what it's called.
I have no
Invisible-
clue what
force
you're going
shield.
on.
Force shield.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
used
use
a
force
force,
field.
field to push it back out.
Yeah. Which is what they did in the moon base.
Yeah, which is really where it hit me that this was the moon base done over again. Okay, Aaron, least favorite scene.
Least favorite scene. See,
Going over notes, going over notes.
I don't know if there was one scene that I really hated though.
Which is alright.
Nothing that
was,
at least.
was
I
there
guess
was
I
there a
didn't-
scene that made you groan and facepalm?
I guess it was just the Doctor and Jamie eating future food because it's like, hey, future food.
Actually that was something they talked about in the Tomb of the Cybermen a bit as well. That scene with Victoria,
Mhm.
although that
I
was
guess-
set farther in the future than this one.
Yeah, I guess this was just kind of superfluous. It wasn't terrible. it was played mostly for laughs, and it just kind of made the episode drag longer.
That's fair. That's the same episode that I mentioned felt too much like padding to me. So
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
so
true.
scene I didn't like. I would have to go with, as much as you wanted to see it, was the death of the director, because it just made no sense as to his sudden change followed by his death. It just was like point not there.
Other
Okay.
than killing him,
What?
yeah.
Other than just killing him, it just didn't. I mean, as far as the plot was concerned, it
Just
seemed
jumped
to be.
rabbits over your head, yeah.
Yeah, it just went over. Anyway, so we are going to go to our final thoughts. Matt, go ahead with your final thoughts.
This is the Moonbase 2.0, but for Moonbase 2.0, it's still, despite some little lacking and the fact that some of our actors are getting tired because this has been a long season, I still think it still holds up compared to some other stories we could probably easily think of from this part of the franchise. So, in general, I would still suggest to see it. Done.
All right, Tim.
Overall, I thought this story was just meh. I know it's unfair to say, but the fact that it was unfinished really brings it down.
Telesnaps.
Telesnaps.
Don't be. I'm going to be giving it some point deductions for telesnaps as well. I've
Snaps,
always done that.
As
And I've
well
always
as
said
just... Yeah.
It's based solely on what we can actually see, not what we think it would have been.
Mhm.
Yes, that's what I have to say. And I always say that if they release the full version, I will probably revise my score
Yes.
retroactively. But at this point, we have to go on what we have.
Yeah, as well as the character of Jarvis really just brings it down for me.
Yeah, they could have gotten rid
Yeah.
of him a lot sooner, as far as I'm
And
concerned.
and with like sort of the needless padding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Padding,
Good
I
spots.
think I can't I'd only recommend this to like if you're a diehard completionist.
Or a really big Cyberman fan at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Bill, your final thoughts?
I enjoyed the Cybermen in this episode. There are definitely some hit or miss points, and definitely some parts where it's in a lot of ways similar to the Moon base. But I do enjoy the way the Cybermen are looking around the edges. I do enjoy the Cyber Planner, Zoe and Jamie playing off of each other. Ultimately, I do think as a result, I do end up enjoying this a bit more than some of the more straightforward stories such as the Moon base. But I would agree that it doesn't completely blow it out of the water. It's not a massive change really in much of a way.
Okay. Aaron.
It was okay. It was kind of meh, a little bit too long. I'm glad I saw it anyway because it's one of the episodes that I've kind of worked myself up to wanting to watch, being a companion introduction episode. So yeah.
All right. For me, yes, this was the Moon base done again with bits of Tomb of the Cybermen added in. Only, really, I think at this point, too many cooks spoiled the broth, or the wrong cook following after the first cook really kind of turned the mix sour, because if you're going to make the Moon base and make it better, this could have had a lot of potential, and everything just seems to fall short except for the BBC costuming department.
Oh, speaking of the BBC costuming, we didn't get to mention this.
Matt, we have about 5 minutes of broadcast time left.
Well, we have a little bit more than that, but just really quickly, the outdoor spacesuits were actually that were used on Zoe and Jamie, as well as a couple other characters, were also refurnished and reused during the Star Wars trilogy, the original 70s to 80s trilogy.
Technically not true. Both Lucas and Doctor Who got these suits from the same dealer, who also designed these suits for the Royal Air Force.
Oh. So
These were high.
it's still a similar make, and it's
It's
very
yeah,
obviously
it's a
shows.
similar type, but if you look at it, the one that they claim is the one reused for Bosk is definitely of a darker color.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very unlikely that it's the same one. If it is, then they definitely had to fix it up in between.
Possibly,
in
Yeah,
between,
it's
adventures.
these suits. Like I said, these suits were designed for the Royal Air Force to use in their high pressure jets. The little piece that's the body armor piece was actually designed as body armor for pilots in the event of having landing. It's actually part of the suit. So yeah, it's just Lucas and the BBC borrowing from actual military technology.
Yep.
So we will go now to our score, starting with you, Matt.
I would really love to see more of this, but given what we can see, I guess I'll have to give this one another 3.5. I think if we could find more of it, it might go up higher, but that depends on how good the rest of it is that we don't get to see.
All right, Tim.
I can't see myself giving this any higher than 2 stars. Like this, between the annoying characters, the padding, and the telesnaps, it was just a below average story for me.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Bill.
I think, and I've been debating on this because I think I gave the Moonbase a high 3.5, Tomb of the Cybermen a low 3.5. I think I'm going to give this a low 4.0. Scores would be a little closer if we were going into more varied scores, but with no farther than a half. I think I'm going to end up giving this a 4.
Okay, Aaron.
I'm probably going to give this a 3. Yeah, I mean it wasn't terrible. I think it was a little bit less than Moonbase.
Mm-hmm.
And less than Tomb of the Cybermen. Like if I could, I would give it like a 2.75 or 2.8.
But that
I
rounds
can't,
to a
so
3.
just-
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
just round it up to a 3.
okay. So yeah, I'm looking at it this way. This would have been a mediocre episode at best. It gets a point deduction for telesnaps. But the acting of Jamie and Zoe off each other and the revised Cybermen outfits gives it a little bit of a bump. So I am going to have to say 2.5.
You
will be my
broke
rating.
your streak. You broke your streak of going down half a point with each serial.
Oh, what? You thought I was going to give it a 3.0 flat?
I thought you would too. I was waiting for it to be 4.5.
It has that telesnap deduction. That hurts it.
Yeah.
It has I have to deduct for it being telesnaps.
Although on the plus side, that means for today's rating, we have a 2, a 2.5, a 3, a 3.5, and a 4.
Making this an exact 3.0 average.
The easiest to conduct, yes. So this is middle of the road, as group consensus goes.
And I think this might be the biggest gap between Randy and my scores yet.
It's very rare that Bill and I have a very different view on an episode. And yes, Bill is our high scorer at this, giving this a 4.0, even above Matt, who has what I refer to as a Cyberman slant in most of his voting.
A bit.
I think you automatically give it at least a half-point bump if it's Cybermen.
Sometimes, yes. Usually because Cybermen usually comes hand in hand with a semi-competent story, but the story kind of fell flat on this one.
So, yeah, this 3.0 is our average for this one. Next week, we will be dealing with the ultimate Patrick Troughton episode with the Cybermen, The Invasion.
Yep.
So,
which, by the way, is out of print to purchase on DVD. I will talk
Which means
more
it'll
about
probably be one of the next. Oh, actually, no. They probably want to animate it before putting it on Blu-ray.
Oh, it was animated already.
It was already animated
that's
for DVD.
right. Oh no, that's right. The one I watched was photo snaps, telesnaps. But yeah, I forgot they did animate it, didn't they?
Yes.
So,
yes, they did. So you saw one
um,
version.
I will discuss my possible theories on why the invasion has been pulled from circulation next week. Tune in then.
We'll see
Take
you
it
all
away,
next
Bill,
time.
for the closing.
Okay. And as always, you can, if you enjoy listening to us, you can visit our Patreon and, throw in whatever pocket change you feel like for your choice of rewards. You can always follow us on Facebook and Twitter, on Unearthly Podcast and Unearthly Pod. And of course, you can watch and listen to our podcasts on twitch.tv/madmat2185, youtube.com/madmatinc1, and mixcloud.com. Search for Unearthly Podcast. And of course, join us next week for The Invasion, written by Derek Sherwin, from a story, of course, by Kit Pedler.
And with that, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Nighty night.